Okay, for this video, we'll be going through writing word equations for reactions involving acid. So this is quite important, right? So basically, we are doing everything that is regarding acids, okay? So the first reaction that we learned is acid plus metal will become salt and hydrogen gas. So this is a general word equation. So how do we test for hydrogen gas? We actually place a lighted spleen. That means there must be a flame, okay, on the spleen, which is a stick at the mouth of the test tube. So this is to test for hydrogen gas, and what happens is the gas will extinguish the lighted spleen with a pop sound. Okay, so this is how we test for hydrogen gas. Now, it's always between acid and metal, but take note that not all metals. Some metals that will not react will be copper, silver, and gold. They will not react with acid, okay? But for magnesium Mg, it does react with acid. And how do we name the salt? So if we look at the word equation, this is magnesium plus hydrochloric acid. Now hydrochloric acid actually is HCl, right? So it has this group, this ion called chloride ion, chloride. Okay, so the salt will take on the chloride plus the name of the metal. Okay, so this is the name of the metal. Okay, it will be added on to the chloride, which comes from the hydrochloric acid. Okay, and then there'll be hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas is H2. Then we do another example, magnesium plus sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid actually has this group called sulfate. So this is called sulfate. Okay, so the salt will then be called a sulfate salt. So again, we take the metal and then we add it. So in this case, the metal is magnesium, so it becomes magnesium sulfate to form the salt. And as always, there will be hydrogen gas. Okay, so now we try another metal, which is lithium. So it's added to hydrochloric acid. So there must be HCl, and because it has chloride, so it will be named lithium chloride. Again, we take the metal plus the kind of ions that we have in the acid. So it's lithium chloride, and again we have hydrogen. Okay, how about lithium plus sulfuric acid? Okay, sulfuric acid is forming a sulfate salt, SO4 2-. Okay, and again we take the metal, which is lithium in this case, and we combine them, and it will be the salt, that is lithium sulfate. Okay, let's do the last one, sodium Na. So nitric acid actually has nitrate, right? Nitric acid is HNO3. Sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Hydrochloric acid is HCl. These are things that you need to know. Hydrochloric acid produces chloride. Maybe I write it here. The salt will be a chloride salt. Sulfuric acid will be a sulfate salt. Sulfate, so I think I write the name, chloride salt. This will be a sulfate salt. And lastly, nitric acid will form a nitrate salt. Nitrate salt, okay? So as long as you know the acid, what kind of acid, then you will know whether is it a chloride salt, sulfate salt, or nitrate salt. How about the name in front? It depends on the metal. Okay, so it's a very simple way of naming it. So back to this, sodium plus nitric acid, so it will form sodium nitrate, right? Because we use nitric acid, so there will be a nitrate salt, and we take the name of the metal, sodium nitrate. And as always, it will always be hydrogen gas if it's metal plus acid. Next, we use sodium with hydrochloric acid, HCl. So it will be a chloride salt, right? We take the metal plus the chloride to form the salt and hydrogen gas. How do we test for hydrogen gas? This is important. Okay, next, we do neutralization first, which is acid plus alkaline to form salt and water. In this case, there is no gas, so there's no test for it, right? Again, how do we form the salt? By now, you should be really familiar with it. Okay, but firstly, alkaline, they have this hydroxide. So hydroxide is OH minus. Okay, hydroxide. So anything we see that has hydroxide will be and alkaline. Okay, so we have sodium hydroxide plus hydrochloric acid, so the salt must be chloride because it's hydrochloric acid. Then we use the metal, which is the sodium, and we name the salt as sodium chloride. Okay, so for potassium hydroxide, potassium is the metal, hydrochloric acid, so there will be a chloride salt. We take the metal, which is potassium, and combine them, and the other product will be water. Okay, then we have lithium hydroxide and sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid, it must be a sulfate salt. Then what is in front of it? It is the metal, which we reacted it with, that came from the alkaline. So it's lithium sulfate. And again, the product is water, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you know the acid, you will know what kind of salt it produces. Okay. Lastly, we have acid plus metal carbonate. So what is the product? So again, if I haven't mentioned, so on the left hand side of the arrow is actually the reactant. The arrow tells us on the right side, it is actually the product. So for acid plus metal carbonate, we have salt, carbon dioxide gas, and water. And how we make the salt is depending on which acid that we have. Okay, but first, how do we test if it's carbon dioxide gas? Again, you need to memorize. To test for carbon dioxide, if we suspect it's carbon dioxide gas, we bubble the gas into the lime water. Okay, and the lime water at first is clear. So if there's carbon dioxide that goes in, it will then form a white precipitate. Okay, so if it precipitate. So if the lime water, which at first is clear, it became white, like milky white, that means the gas that is introduced into the lime water is carbon dioxide. But if I introduce a gas into the lime water and the lime water starting it was clear and it remains clear, that means the gas is not carbon dioxide. Simple as that. Okay, so what's the positive result? It means the gas will form a white precipitate in lime water. Now, let's see how we can form the salt. So, if you have learned from the previous two reactions, if this is hydrochloric acid, it will form a chloride salt. If this is nitric acid, it will form a nitrate salt. We take the metal and we add it in. If it's a sulfuric acid, it will form a sulfate salt. Okay, nitric acid, again, it will form a nitrate salt. Okay, so the salt will depend on the acid that is being used, right? And then we will have carbon dioxide, which you need to know what to test, and one of the product will be water. Okay, so this is the answer for your last worksheet. What do you need to know from this worksheet is that what are the three reactions, how to test for hydrogen gas, how to test for carbon dioxide gas, and how is the name of the salt being named. Okay, how do we name the salt? Okay, so I repeat one last time. If you are using hydrochloric acid, okay, it will form a chloride salt. If you are using sulfuric acid, it will form a sulfate salt. If it's nitric acid, HNO3, it will form a nitrate salt. But what is the name in front? It depends on what is the metal that was being used. Okay, what is the metal that is in the reactant? All right.